What my dying aunt showed me about the church's response to Trump's election.
Like, hey, the doctor's going to come in this afternoon and tell me if I have cancer or not. It didn't really matter if she had cancer or not at that point. It was one of those things of like, we knew she was going to die soon either way. And so we joked about it for a second. We're like, hey, you should respond in a way he's not ever seen anybody respond. So the doctor came in, and you could tell, like looking at him, he was like pale, and he'd been sweating a little bit, and this was like going to be hard news for him to deliver. And so he takes out his clipboard or notes or whatever, and he's like, yeah, it's sort of the worst. It's what we're nervous about, but it does look like you have cancer. And my aunt like sat up out of the bed and goes, really? Finally, cancer. And then she just starts cheering and then does this. She goes, oh, and then pretends to die. And in the room, it was hilarious. Like, obviously I still laugh about it, but at the time and still now it's not the right response to cancer. It's a response that required her to know something else that the doctor didn't know yet. She knew she was dying anyway. It didn't matter what he gave her news on, right? And she knew that when she died, that wasn't the end of the story for her, because she knew Christ and his resurrection. When he came in and delivered cancer, she could have fun with that, right? She could interrupt that story in a way that doctor probably has never had a patient do since then either, right? And so this like 30-year-old doctor was like, oh, I don't know what's happening right now. And here's the thing. I genuinely believe in the face of political stories, in the face of political pressures, in the face of all of the stuff from Tuesday and Wednesday and going forward, the church's response ought to look way more like my Aunt Jan, right? It ought to look like when the world tells you this really matters, you have to be like, oh, yay! I don't care, right? Like, I care, I know it matters, right? Like, cancer does matter there, and cancer is one of the things that contributed to her dying. I just know that's not the end of that story, right? That's not how this goes. This morning, I want to encourage you with that. Whichever side you're on in that scenario, that's not the only story that matters. It's not even the primary story that matters. It doesn't mean that it doesn't matter at all. It just means there's another story that takes precedence over this. And that story is that Christ has died for you, and Christ has risen, and you're captured by Jesus in a totally different way. That means our imaginations and our idolatries and our allegiances have to be confessed and given back over to Jesus.